Thanks so much for coming, everyone. We'll just kind of wait a little bit longer. Numbers are pouring in at the moment, so I know it takes a little while to join. So I can see everyone kind of trying to join in quite large numbers. So we'll just let them come on for a minute. But thanks so much for coming on. This is the second SERAS mini conference, I'm sure you all know. The first one we held in December. That was our first mini conference on the future of robotics with thought leaders like Professor Tony Prescott, Chris Charlton, and Dave Gibbs, who were on the SERAS committee. Gave some brilliant and kind of really interesting presentations on their thoughts on the future of robotics and autonomous systems and complement technologies in education. We're going today for a kind of a slightly more practical theme, really, where we really want to look at the actual kind of use of robotics, robots in education itself. So actually how you can use robots in education to kind of help with skill levels and in education, in technology, and in STEM generally. And so if I just move forward a slide, I can show you who's speaking today. So basically, as you'll see there, this is the kind of introduction at the moment, which I'll try to keep as short as possible. Shortly coming is David Whale, who's going to discuss some recent projects that he's designed for Microbit, for the Microbit Foundation, and it'll be fascinating to hear what he's done. And he's done a kind of a lot of work with Microbit in the past, as I'm sure lots of you are aware. And he's especially going to talk about the new built-in radio feature on the V2 of the Microbit and how that can be used for remote control. We're also really lucky to have Dr. Melissa Butt and Emily Whaites from Discovery STEM, who are a kind of Sheffield engagement and skills provision and education initiative that are doing amazing things in Sheffield. And they're going to talk a bit about their work, and they've been using Miros as well in teaching and engagement. And I know that they want to talk a bit about that and generally about CPD and the kind of role of using robots to help teachers basically come up to pace with technological innovation. Following that, Stewart Powell from Techno Camps will be with us, and he's going to talk about Techno Camps' amazing success in Wales, really, in using robots in kind of extracurricular activities in schools to kind of engage people and encourage them to take up computer science, basically, and to engage them in STEM. And he's going to talk about as well the role that competitions have played in Technocamp's work in Wales. We'll follow that with a debate afterwards, where I really hope you will stay around, and the speakers will all be here to kind of answer any questions. And during the presentations as well, please do feel free to put questions in the chat, and the presenters might be able to ask them then, or we'll hold them back for later, or some other of us hopefully will be able to answer them. So without further ado, I'll hand over to David. David, are you there?
Hello, and if people can hear me and see me, there should be a little dot in the corner, hopefully.
Yeah, we can.
Ah, super. Thank you, Stuart. Excellent. I just need to navigate to somewhere here. Here's my slides. Oh, I see lots of people. Okay, I'll make a start. So my name is David Whale. You can get me on Twitter as WhaleGeek or via email as david@thinkingbinaries.com. And so a little bit about myself. Who am I? So I've spent many years as an embedded software engineer, basically writing software that goes into devices you wouldn't think had computers inside them. And many years ago, back in '92, I used to teach A-level computing. So I've been involved in education industry for quite some time. In the last 5 or so years, I've been a school STEM ambassador. So I do lots of work going into schools, helping with science clubs and computing clubs. And through that, I ended up writing a book called Adventures in Minecraft, which is a Python coding book for children that shows them how to write Python code to change modify the game Minecraft. I'm a member of the IET, and through the IET, I did quite a lot of work on the Faraday challenges. You see a link down at the bottom there to the Faraday challenges, and someone's just clicked my slide. And through the IET, I ended up working alongside the BBC Microbit team. So when the Microbit was first being designed, I was volunteering through the IET, helping with the rollout of some of the materials. That's where I met Trish. And as a result of that, I ended up working for a couple of years with the Microbit Educational Foundation. So I was frontline support for a couple of years. And if anyone ever had any problems with microbits, they would email in and it was answering it. And through that work, I got branded with a honorary title of the Microbit Wizard because I did quite a few big projects. So let's have a look at the Microbit for those that may or may not be familiar with it. It was released in 2015. Pocket-sized computer, 25 LEDs, 2 buttons, has an accelerometer and compass for gesture sensing, edge pins at the bottom for plugging in accessories. It has resistive touch sensing, so you can touch 2 pins and it will sense that you've touched it. Senses temperature and light. Has onboard Bluetooth, so you can pair it with your phone or your tablet. Through that same radio, you can get peer-to-peer networking with microbits, which we'll talk a bit about later on. And it's coded in 3 main languages: MakeCode, which is JavaScript-based, MicroPython, and also C++. And recently, in October 2020, the Foundation released an upgraded version called version 2, which you'll be pleased to hear costs exactly the same amount of money as version 1 and is completely backwards compatible. But it has some extra goodies on board. It has a speaker and a microphone, so sound is a big thing on the version 2. It has capacitive touch sensing, so you can touch a single pad now, and the logo at the top is also touch sensitive. So if you touch the little eyes at the top, it can respond. It has a better CPU in there, so you can do more with it, more memory. There's a power down mode, so you can hold the button on the back and it will power down while it's on batteries to save you keep unplugging them. And a huge amount of work was done by the Microbit Education Foundation to make sure that it was fully backwards compatible with other devices, which is really useful for teachers, obviously. We invested a lot of time into the project. So I'm going to run through a few projects that I've been involved with, which got me the wizard title, and then I'm going to dig in a little bit as to how you can do smaller versions of those projects and use the Microbit as a tool in education. So perhaps one of the biggest robotic projects I did, a very big robot, was the Hubble telescope at Jodrell Bank. And this was a project we did with the BBC and the One Show. And the idea was that we got the children to write little bits of code from the Microbit, and we linked them together and connected them over the network. And as they turned this little model telescope that was on the table, it would turn the real Hubble telescope. And we found a pulsar. And this was a great project. It took us 3 days of filming and engineering to get this thing to work. You see the little system diagram there. We basically had 3 microbits plugged in via USB to a Raspberry Pi computer. That connected over the network to the telescope controller and controlled one of the 2 telescopes. That's one of the biggest projects we did. Thinking a little bit smaller, we've done a lot of work in school STEM clubs with a group called Pi Wars. It's a competitive robot event that happens every year in Cambridge, and we use 2 microbits with the radio feature. So the onboard radio feature will send messages between 2 microbits, and we basically had 1 microbit that we could tilt as a controller, send a radio message to a receiver plugged into a Raspberry Pi, and the Raspberry Pi was driving the motors of the robot. And I did a presentation recently at the Pi Wars conference in January, which goes into more detail about that. You'll find the links at the top. Another IoT-like project that we did that was quite fun was for one of the BET education shows. Built this project called a tone matrix. The tone matrix, this particular one, was 8 by 5 microbits. It had 8 microbits across and 5 down, and you could turn each one on and off by pressing the buttons. And then that was wirelessly linked to another microbit plugged to a Raspberry Pi, and that had 5 wave files on its filing system. And depending on which of the microbits were turned on or turned off, it would play that musical tone. And we built a circular version so it showed the cyclic nature of the music. So it was basically 40 microbits talking all over their radio to another microbit. So it's a bit like a mesh network, if you like. And then we had some people that saw that and said, well, we like the idea, can we do something a bit bigger? So a bigger IoT network. And I was invited to do a project with BBC Click. They do a live show every year. And we have there, you'll see on the slides, picture of the whole audience. So there was 200 people downstairs, 200 people upstairs. We basically wirelessly connected all the people in the seats by getting to hold a microbit. And then we built this huge matrix and had loads of different recorded sounds for different columns in the audience. And it was the same idea, but it was basically 192 microbits. So it was the largest number of microbits we've had working together at once with the using the radio feature. And we think we probably broke the world record for a number of microbits all communicating at the same time. There's been some work done recently. So a guy called Jan at ARM did a presentation at BBC Click Live last year where he showed a machine learning system using Edge Impulse. And basically what he did was he used a piece of trainer software, and he got people at the events to say the word hello into their microphones, and it would basically record and analyze those pieces of audio, store them in a model, and then he built that model with a recognizer and loaded it into the microbit. And then anyone can now say hello to microbit and it smiles. So this is the beginnings of some work that's now possible with the version 2, which has a much faster processor with more memory in it. So let's have a little think about using the microbit as a way to model for educators and to build smaller versions of these projects. So it's really good as a way of explaining how the world works, really good to learn IoT, robotics and AI and explain those. And also what I like to say is I think it's great for children to see that they have a tool in their hand that they can use to invent a new future. So I'm going to talk about a couple of projects and then we'll do the demos at the end just because it's easier to switch between screens that way. So one of my favourite IoT-like demos is called Chukka Duck. And what you do is you have 2 microbits and there's this virtual duck that appears on one of them, and you shake the microbit and it sends a radio message and it clears the screen, and then the duck appears on the other microbit. And this is a really good way just to very simply show children how you can send messages between 2 microbits. And that's a great project to start with that you can then build on. And you see the code there on the right. And there's a link at the bottom and you can actually get the code and try it out. The second is there's a robot that I got from Kitronic, basically, and a microbit plugs into it as a motor controller, and I built this thing called a Buggy. And again, the code is quite simple. You can see that on the screen there. And the idea is it moves forward. There's a little switch on the front. Please excuse the blue tack. And when the switch senses that it's hit something, it reverses, turns left, and then goes forward again. And you can do simple maze solving, simple obstacle avoidance with this. And this is quite simple to do with just a few lines of code. In the AI land, there's what I would call fake AI. So if you look up ELIZA on Wikipedia, there's a link at the bottom, there's been quite a lot of work over the years for people writing systems that look like AI, but they're just a very, very simple algorithm. And I built a project for the Microbit version 2 launch, which is based on a little character inside the Tron film, which is called Bit. And Bit has 2 states. He's either saying yes or saying no. So I built a little project where it uses, you can see the system design diagram on the right there. It listens to the level of the microphone. When it senses the noise, it times how long that noise is, counts how many words you say. And then when you go quiet after a timeout, it then plays those back with a little bit of randomness. And it says yes or no. And I'll give it a quick little demo of that in a moment. Also, one thing to think about with robotics and AI is actually to mix in a little bit of personality. So if you can make robots feel a bit more human, feel that they have a personality, then that's a really good way to get people to engage with them. So a couple of early projects I did with Microbit were I did a game where I attached a Microbit to a little frying pan and made this game called Perfect Pancakes. And the idea is you have to flip the pancake at the right time 5 times. And there's loads of lovely little animations on the screen. So an example there is that little line, it moves up and down, it's like the pancake sizzling. And there's lots of other little cameos in it and little Easter eggs where if you leave the egg for too long and it burns, then you get a fire alarm go off and you have to reach up for the sky and turn the fire alarm off. And then the BBC liked this project, but said they wanted to do a sample project for all the journalists at the launch day that they could make without having to send out loads and loads of little frying pans. So we made a similar game but using a coffee cup, and you just attach it with a bit of string. And the idea is you imagine it's raining and then you tilt the cup from left to right. Again, this is just getting ideas of gaming and personality and humour into the device to make it feel more human. Another project I did for the version 2 launch with a bit of humour in it was a thing called Mimik. And this is very similar to Ask the Bits. It uses the microphone and the speaker. It waits for you to talk, and then it times the phrasing of what you say, and then it squeaks the same phrase in black to you. So you say, "Hello, how are you?" And you go, "Squeak, squeak, squeak, squeak," and the little voice comes out the speaker, and the mouth moves on the screen. So that's a great little demo again of getting humour in to make things look a bit more human. So where's all this going? So the title of this this presentation and this meetup was about robotics, IoT, and AI. I'm going to add a little bit of personality in there and say, well, if you have robots that have sensors and actuators, they can sense their environment, they can move and affect it. With IoT, you can do remote control, remote sensing, access to databases. AI gives the robot a chance to infer what's happening around it, make some decisions and adapt to its environment. And the personality makes it a bit more human. And if you mix all this together, I think what we're leading to is intelligent objects. So two that I'd like to signpost here are the Pepper robot and also Miro robot. Great little projects. Some links at the bottom. Please do look them up. I'm particularly interested in Miro myself. I would like to find out some more about that. But I think this is the culmination of lots of different ideas coming together into a single device that people can engage with and then they can learn with. So what's my parting message? Well, I think really the Microbit is an excellent tool for educators and learners to use. It's really good to model ideas with, to reason about the world, and to invent the future that children in particular really would quite like to live in the future. I've got some little demos. I've probably got a few minutes just to go through the demos. I want to make this a bit interactive. Just bear with me while I work out how to change the screen over and share my video. Somewhere there's this magic button where I can share my video. Yeah, I did practice this earlier, but I got it.
So have you gone to share application and screen?
Share camera, here you go. This sounds like the right one, doesn't it? Right, okay, this is me. This is really me. This is not recording, this is really me. So what I have here is I've got some preloaded microbits just to speed up the demonstration. So this is the Chukka Duck. And the Chukka Duck was called Chukka Duck by a friend of mine, Alan, who saw this and said, "Oh, it's Chukka Duck." And what we have here, so here's a microbit, it's back to one on the screen. Here's a microbit with a duck on it, and I shake the microbit and the duck goes to the other microbit. And I shake this one and it goes over to the other one. And this is just really, really simple. It's about 4 or 5 lines of code. And what we find when we demonstrate this to children, the first thing they start to do is they start to think, oh, how does that duck, get from one to the other? We talk about radio message and that you can use radio for, different things to build wireless devices. And then the first thing they start to do is they start to, get the microbits further apart and see how far they can go. And they go outside the room and see if it goes through walls, and they hide behind the filing cabinet. So it's a really, really good way for getting children to engage. Second little project I want to show. So this, I might need to hold up to the microphone. Let's see if I can do this. So this is the Mimik. 1, 2, 3. Don't know if you can hear that. 1, 2, 3. Hello, how are you? So it's basically, it records the pattern of your voice and it squeaks back at you, and that gives it a little bit of personality. Third little project I want to show is called AskBit. These are all sound sensitive. So let me reset this. Hello. Turn left. Turn right. Go up. Will I be rich? Will I be famous? Yay. So it's fake AI in that. So it's basically it's just again counting the number of words in the phrase and adding a little bit of randomness to it and giving an answer. It can say yes or no. If it doesn't understand, it will say yes, no. And the last little, I'll just point out the robot. There's a little video linked in the back of the presentation. It's easy for you to see this doing orbital avoidance. So basically what happens is you press the A button to start. And when the micro switch hits the wall, it backs off and then turns left a bit, and then it goes forward again. So it can basically do very, very simple maze solving. The last demo is a little bit ambitious because I've got a couple of bits to plug in. So just give me 30 seconds just to do this, and then we'll be done. So this is the last demo now. So I have a microbit preloaded, and it's got a tilt sensor in it. As I tilt it, it sends a radio message. And then I have another microbit here that's listening to that message. I should have had my window open first, shouldn't I? I'm not going to be able to demonstrate this because I can't screen share and show windows easily at the same time. But basically what happens is you tilt this microbit around and it sends forward, backward, left, right and stop messages. This microbit is plugged in via USB into your laptop, receives the message, and then we've got a little demo. It's in the link in the back of the presentation, and what that does is a screen pops up where you can control this on-screen robot. But what we did with it was we then took away the on-screen robot and connected it to some motors, and then we used that to drive our little robot. So basically you use the gesture sensor on one microbit to send a radio message. So again, you just think of it as it's like Chukka Duck. And it receives a message, and then it controls the robot. So I've seen the question someone asked about, are they possible with the old microbit? So anything that uses sound, if it's just sound playback, you can buy an extra speaker to plug in. If it's microphone, you really need the version 2. There are some kits you can get for the version 1. So there's Simon Monk does a Monk Makes kit that's got some sensors in it. It's got a board that's got a microphone on it, so you can make it work with some attachments. So the 2 projects that really rely on the sound being built in is AskBit and Mimik. And Mimik is showcased on the Microbit Foundation website as well, and I think they've made the code available. All the others, so the Chukka Duck, that can be used. These are original microbits. These are the original school's handout. And the Buggy, that's an original version 1 microbit. And the remote and the receiver, they're all version 1 microbits as well. Okay, so if you want to see any of those demos in a bit more detail, they're all linked. They're all up on YouTube. They're all linked to the back of the presentation. Please do download the presentation and have a look through those. And that's the end of my talk for today. Hope you enjoyed it. And I don't know if I have to press any buttons here to hand over to the moderators, whether they just take control.
David, thank you. That was brilliant. Thanks. Really, really interesting. I think the Chukka Duck is a real hit. I imagine. I think you could really see that kind of being used in schools all over the place. Have you managed to demonstrate that much? Hi there. Is that better? Is my sound working? David, many thanks for that. As David was saying, that if any of you want to see any links, basically, if you want to click through on the links with the demonstrations that David's got on the YouTube films and everything, that we'll have those available on the website later. So we're recording this session, and you'll be able to watch all this, but also we'll be able to put the slides on it. And please do get in touch with us if we can help you access anything more. So David, thanks very much. That was brilliant. And now on to Dr. Melissa Butt and Emily Whaites from Discovery STEM. I'll just hand over. I know Melissa's had a few problems uploading her slides, but hopefully, Melissa, you're ready to go.
Hi, Tony. Hi, everybody. I've never used this system before. I've just clicked on, there we go, it's up. And to go to the next slide, do I just click on the slide? There's an arrow underneath. Can you see the arrow underneath? I've got that. Thank you very much, Patricia. Brilliant. Thank you. Hello, everybody. My name is Dr. Melissa Butt, and I am the founder of
Melissa, we can't hear you.
Hi, has my mic come back now?
Yep, you're back.
I'm trying to show my video. Oh, I think it's working now. Sorry. Okay. So I'll start again. Did you not hear any of that?
We heard a bit, but start again, Melissa. That'd be brilliant.
Okay. So Discovery STEM Education is a not-for-profit educational organisation based at Kelham Island Museum and the Sheffield College. Our mission is to support educators to inspire the next generation of global STEM collaborators. And we do that through three main projects. We've got World Educational Robotics, which is a very hands-on, practical, engineering-based kind of robotics, all linked to industry and solving problems in industry. And young people develop their coding skills to see programming in World Educational Robotics. We've got the Miro Robotics Education Programme, which is more focused around artificial intelligence and solving problems in healthcare using the Miro robot. And young people develop their skills up to Python coding. And Emily's going to talk about that a lot more after me in a moment. We've also got our Invent Future Global programme, which is all about training young people to be able to identify problems themselves, invent and innovate solutions, to then use the engineering design process, present their inventions, and also become entrepreneurs. And all of our programs have got a real heavy focus on solving real world problems. Our belief is that STEM, solving real world problems using science, technology, engineering and mathematics understanding rather than those subjects in themselves. In 2019, we were really excited to join the UK Robotics and Autonomous Systems Network and to be part of the Skills and Education in Robotics and Autonomous Systems Strategy Group. For anyone here who's not part of that group, the main aims of this task group are to understand RAS training needs, identify gaps, challenges, opportunities and best practices, to demystify RAS technologies and inspire people from diverse backgrounds to explore RAS careers and influence public policy. So, through many years of working in a STEM consultancy role in numerous schools across the UK and working in the UK government STEM strategy groups, we've been able to identify that the two most important areas that are needed to focus on to upskill our future workforce is to develop world-class training programs at school level and to provide training and support to school teachers from primary school level. So our strategy has been to develop teaching resources using the best and most cutting-edge educational technologies to then teach those programs to children ages between 7 to 18, both remote and on site. And from teaching our programs to those small cohorts of young people, we're then able to refine them and then train school teachers and STEM organisations. And from that, we've seen amazing things happen just from giving some basic level robotics teacher training to primary school teachers. We've got schools like Sheffield High School, and I think some of the teachers are here today, who have then gone on to further develop the curriculum and link robotics into the curriculum that they know so well at primary level, and to then go on to then do outreach and then train other surrounding schools, and to really disseminate and spread this teaching of robotics embedded in the curriculum, which is just incredible. So between 2019 and 2020, we trained 200 plus teachers in our on-site centre at Kelham Island Museum in hands-on practical our World Educational Robotics programme. And then since December 2020, we've trained 30 teachers in Miro code using the Miro platform. This has all been online, and our target for 2021 is to train another 200 teachers in World Educational Robotics and 200 teachers in the Miro educational programme, and to support those teachers to also then be able to do further training themselves in-house and spread to other schools themselves as well. Just going to, if this works, show you a little clip, an overview of our training. The link's not working. Is there any way that I can click on a link on this presentation? The teacher training words.
No.
Sorry?
I don't think you can, no.
Okay.
We can get the link from the file and share it. Just give me a sec.
Oh, thank you very much, Michael. So the teachers on the Miro teacher training programme that you can see on the Zoom meeting picture there are from Sheffield schools. So there's Dawn from Sheffield High School, Russell from Beck Primary, and then we've got teachers there from Door Primary School and Lowfield.
Do you do secondary school? Have you got a lot of connections and development in that part?
We have got connections in secondary school, and we do work with a lot of young people from secondary schools, and we have been collaborating with UTC secondary school, and they are teaching our World Educational Robotics programme in their school, and we've got a few other secondary schools, mostly Sheffield-based ones, who are looking, like King Egbert's, are looking to do our teacher training in 2021, and I think Mercia School as well. But that's something that we're looking to expand now. We've started to do a lot of work in primary, and now we're developing our resources to a higher level now. And Emily will speak about how she's developed the Miro programme now to start to be more appropriate for secondary level as well. Any look on the link, anybody?
Sorry, I couldn't get my mic. I've got the link ready to share, but I'll have to do it via my screen. It looks like it's the quickest way anyway. Is that all right?
Yeah. Do I need to do anything?
Over for a second then. Yeah, let me just turn it on.
Thank you, Michael.
Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Right, yeah. I'll play that. That should work.
Thank you, Michael.
No problem. I shall return you back to your slides. Did the sound work on that, by the way?
Sorry?
Did the sound work on that, by the way?
It did. It was a bit muffled.
Oh,
But
sorry.
it worked. Thank you.
And I'll let you get back to your slide. Was it this one?
Perfect.
There you
Thank you very much, Michael.
No problem.
So when we first started to do robotics programs with young people, we found that there was a misconception amongst a lot of young people that robotic systems have to be humanoids or cars. So to demystify RAS technologies to young people, we have incorporated a lot of work in our programs that encourage young people to use RAS to invent solutions to their own real world problems. On the picture on the left, there's some boys who have programmed and invented an autonomous kitchen. There's a girl in the middle who has developed an autonomous system which has a sensor, and it's something to do with detecting when her cat was doing something, then a motor, when it sensed that the cat was doing something, a motor would go on to scare it, and if the cat was doing something else, then a light would flash. So just getting them to do different things, not autonomous systems or robots that look like humanoids or cars. And here young people are innovating biochemical research spectrophotometers, and they did a lot of innovating to make them as autonomous as possible and finding ways to make them move samples by themselves and to flash lights when a sample had a colour intensity that suggested that a patient had too much of a chemical in their urine, which detected they were suggested that they were at risk of kidney disease. So just trying to really get them to realise that autonomous systems come into so many different fields. And I think it's been a long-standing issue in the UK that we need to inspire more people from diverse backgrounds to explore RAS careers. And I did a publication a long time ago in 2013, which showed, just like many other research papers have done since, that it's really important that young people have role models that they identify with in order for them to be able to aspire to be involved in particular careers and to make particular career choices and have that belief in themselves. So one of the things that we do a lot of, as well as making sure that all of the people that we work with are from various backgrounds, for schools and for other STEM organisations in the UK and overseas, we work with 25 other organisations across the world to put online platforms together where young people can come together and collaborate on a global level with other young people from across the world, but they also get to see role models in robotics and other STEM areas from across the world. So they get to see some people who are like famous in their countries for various things. So recently we did one where we just had 85 people, young people from 15 different countries, all come together to collaborate and show their various inventions. Most of them are autonomous and robotics based. This is another video, and I don't know if is it going to be possible to show a little bit of this video clip, Michael? Is it easy and quick enough? Have we got time to do it?
Yep. Is it from the role model?
From the role models, yeah.
We're slightly running out of time.
Oh, well, wait, I think we'll leave this one. Okay.
What I can do is I'll copy the link into the chat if anybody wants to watch it.
Thank you, Michael.
No problem.
And then the other thing that we've done that online recently. We've got lots of global collaborations going on and role models that young people are able to access in robotics role models. And in the UK, in Sheffield University, we did 2 big events with young people from China, Mexico, and the UK, where they all came together in an international collaboration, and they were collaborating together and solving robotics challenges together. This video, if we could show this one, please, Michael. This is the last video. This would be great. The one where it says international collaboration. Hello?
Sorry, it's my microphone.
No worries.
One sec.
So this is at Sheffield University, 2019, and we did the same thing in 2018 as well. We did plan to do the same thing this year, but we weren't able to because of COVID, so we had a much smaller version at Kelham Island Museum. But next weekend, we've actually got 12 UK children collaborating with 12 young people from USA and Chile and Mexico and Turkey, and they're all going to come together and do this kind of thing, but online. It's going to be a virtual event next weekend. Great, thank you. If you could click play on that one. Thanks, Michael.
No problem.
And the Sheffield school teachers were attending this one as well. And Tony Prescott, Professor Tony Prescott is here as well.
Does this sound okay?
Just about.
Is it too loud again?
So these were the Mexicans. They just came 2 days before. And this is in the Octagon Centre, so it was really exciting for them all to be somewhere where they know people graduate. These are the Chinese teams.
We declare that WER 2019 European Open has begun.
So the children also have to go up on the stage and talk about their personal opinions on a various theme. They were talking about their opinions on artificial intelligence. Thanks, Michael. You can pause it there.
No problem.
And if you could just put me back onto my screen, please, to finish off, that would be great. Thank you.
I can. Oh yeah. There you go.
Thank you very much. So thank you very much for listening, and Emily's going to give us some more information about how she's developed the Miro Education programme. And if any of you want any more information about what we do, our website is there, discoverystem.org.uk. We are Discovery STEM Education on Facebook and at discovery_STEM_ on Twitter, and my email address is there. We also have YouTube channels and social media for World Educational Robotics UK as well. Thank you very much, and hand over to Emily.
Thanks. I think do we only have about 2 minutes left?
Okay. Emily, you can speak for a bit longer than that, don't worry.
Are you sure? Because I've just got a video I can show, and then I will share the presentation that's got all the key information on.
Whatever you like. Stewart's next from Technocamps, and as long as everyone doesn't mind waiting a bit after 5. Stewart, are you all right with that?
Yeah, I don't mind.
Brilliant. Emily, you've got a bit longer than 2 minutes.
Okay, perfect. Is this sharing? Can anyone see? Okay. Can you see? Can we see my screen?
No, we've still got Melissa.
Is it able?
Let me try to fix that. Is that better?
Anyone see it?
Yeah, we've got Miro on the screen.
We've got Miro on the PowerPoint.
Perfect. Okay, so I will try and go through this really quickly. So I'm Emily Whaites. I'm Curriculum Development Coordinator at Discovery STEM, and I've been in charge of the Miro project for Discovery STEM for the past few months now. Our aim at Discovery STEM was to produce a curriculum that had a real-world focus and to develop students' key coding skills in Buggy and Python. Our lessons have included Miro being part of a quarantine ward, Miro working on a Sheffield Steelworks, working in classrooms, and so many more situations. We're even about to introduce lessons that have a user focus, and we're going to start looking into the human side of robotics. We also, as part of our project, will be globally training teachers to use Mirabee within a global curriculum. Some of the key benefits to adding Mirabee to your curriculum, including it lends itself perfectly to remote learning with its inbuilt simulator. You're even able to teach global classes, and we will be beginning teaching students in Pakistan in a matter of weeks. It helps to build student confidence by allowing them to work at their own speed without pressure, and they can continually test their code without becoming nervous of making any mistakes in front of their class. It is also a massively cutting edge technology. It's an amazing robot, and the students love debugging it, and the fact they are first students to start coding this robot in the world. So some of the skills that we aim to gradually build up a range of coding skills that go from little to no coding knowledge to variables within 5 weeks. So you can see build up in the first term. We begin with just introduction, we move on to control loops, then conditional judgment, and like I said, within 5 weeks they are learning and using variables. In term 2, we do a lot of recaps, and we start to look at conditional judgment again, sonar, Morse code, counting loops, and periodic control loops. Within term 3, we start to really take it up a level, and we learn about cliff centers, how we can use them to our advantage, different types of variables and conditional judgment, lists, and even maths. So we can start to use this within the curriculum with that maths in factory orders. In term 4, which is where our students currently are at, we are learning in Engineer's Calculator. We've been using mathematical equations, different mathematical functions, and we're using that to help an engineer check their maths equations. We then start to bring in those social sciences and user-focused problem solving, and we use Miro's camera and coordinates. We've actually even started a brand new class aimed at older students, so this is more secondary school and college based, where all of their skills will be used in Python. So they will be learning the same skills, will be using movement, variables, conditional judgment, but they'll be going straight into Python. Some of the resources that we have created are each lesson has a PowerPoint, a worksheet, and a lesson plan. Each term comes with a full scheme of work and a logbook for that evidence to show the work they have done and the skills they have achieved. And most importantly, each lesson comes with a video. So these resources are aimed at facilitators without any experience. In fact, I had no experience in Blockly before I started this project. Each logbook and lesson plan comes with the answers, teaching tips, and all your skill explanations. And the video that we explains the challenges, the situation, and the skills that they will be learning. So you could, if you wanted to, you could do very little teaching at all. Teacher training sessions are global and they are run remotely. They are composed of 4 one-hour sessions, completely interactive. They are incredibly fun and also a little bit of a challenge. They are fully funded by the EPSRC, and so far we have trained over 20 facilitators. Thank you very much. I'm sorry if that was a bit rushed. I will send through all the information into the chat box, and you can ask me any questions as well.
Emily, thanks. That was fascinating. Great to see Miro again there on the screen. And there's some really interesting stuff there. And thanks a lot, Melissa, as well. It looks like a really fascinating work that Discovery STEM are doing. So Stewart, I can see you already, and thanks for waiting a bit. And over to you.
No problem at all. I'm hoping all of you can hear me. Let me try and share my screen. It's always the hard part when you're a computer science lecturer and you can never get the technology to work. I'm sure all of you feel the same most of the time. So good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for asking me to come here, Richard. I'm always a bit nervous when I get to speak last because you never really know what's going to come before you. And I don't really know how I can follow Chukka Duck. And I'm embarrassed to say I've never heard of the Chukka Duck project before, and I'm certainly going to be recreating it with many of our students in the future. Maybe there's a way of doing that virtually over the internet as well. Maybe that's something nice to explore. So really quickly, I just want to give a quick introduction to what I'm going to talk about today. I'm going to talk about a little bit of robotics in education and how we've been using robotics to inspire students in STEM, and particularly look at how we've utilized a variety of different types of robotics competitions to do this. I want to start just giving a very quick introduction. My name is Stewart Powell. I'm a computer science tutor at Swansea University within the computer science department, and I'm currently assistant director of Techno Camps. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Techno Camps as we go through. But briefly, Techno Camps is our schools and communities outreach program led by the computer science department at Swansea University, working with schools, education stakeholders, pupils, and teachers all across Wales. In my day job, I am very focused on developing and delivering a wide range of modules at both undergraduate and postgraduate level, particularly interested in research around computer science education. Currently working on a fascinating project looking at the inception and development of computer science qualification criteria in Wales. It's a long story going all the way back to the early 70s, but very interesting to look into. And I also spend a lot of time looking at, within the field of computer science and education research, looking at the use of robotics to teach. And one of my most recent projects was looking at how you could use swarm robotics to actually help students understand OOP, so the object-oriented programming paradigm, and help them to link that together. We actually linked it to a secondary school level qualification for computer science, which uses Greenfoot, so we could be used with school children as well as university students. Myself, and then I also take the lead role on the operational side of the Techno Camps program. So a little bit about Techno Camps. Where I could spend a whole 2 hours talking about Techno Camps, but very quickly, we're a massive program. We have lots and lots of sub-brands. I can see, obviously, we're supported by the IOC, that RAS is supported by the IOC. We actually are the lead partner for the Institute of Coding in Wales, which is a collaboration between Swansea University and Cardiff University. And we have lots and lots of different brands and lots of interesting things that we do as part of Techno Camps. To give you a bit of history, Technocamps was founded back in 2003 by our director, Professor Farron Moller. It was founded because he was a new lecturer, a new professor to the Department of Computer Science at Swansea, and year on year, we would lose around 25% of our computer science undergraduates every year. And the head of department, Farron, usually would teach first-year students, and the head of department asked Farron, what is he doing wrong? Why are all these students leaving and deciding not to study computer science before? And this obviously caused Farron, hoped it wasn't his teaching, caused him to investigate what was going on. And it was a lot to do with their perception of what computer science was. And back in 2003, even all the way up to 2011, there was not qualifications widely taught within computer science at GCSE level. So people really didn't know what computer science was. We've lived all the way through that, and actually, obviously now, with the political focus and the change in education, change in curriculum, and change in focus, you might say thank you to Michael Gove in 2012 in BET, but I don't know. Scrapping ICT is still a very contentious issue, and I think there is definitely a space for ICT. Maybe I can talk a little bit about a very great development that's happening in Wales over the next coming months with our new GCSE in digital technology. So Technocamps is a wide history, working with young people. In 2011, a lot of the research was showing that if you want to inspire particularly girls into computer science, you need to start with them much earlier. You need to break down these sort of negative perceptions before they even happen. So we started our playground computing project, and in 2012 we started with working with what you might want to consider the holy grail, because if you can inspire and motivate and empower teachers within computer science to inspire all of their students, then actually our job could be done. We're still going, there's still lots of work to be done, and we hope we're still making a massive impact in terms of digital all across Wales. As I said, it's a pan-Wales program. We actually have hubs in every single computer science department in Wales, which is great. We still have geographical challenges. I often say that being based in the university means you're never too far away from a Technocamps hub, but actually we still have massive geographical challenges in Wales. Particularly, I find getting our undergraduate students out to schools can be very challenging. And the programme, just roughly to give you the kind of scale of this programme, since 2011, we've actually engaged with over 60,000 young people across Wales, roughly 25,000 primary and 35,000 secondary school students, and around 150 primary school teachers and 400 secondary school teachers. So a really big project that's been changed a lot, morphed and supported the changes in curriculum, and actually informed the curriculum development here in Wales, but provided this wide breadth of support, and with this one mission, I suppose, and is to inspire and motivate young people to think differently about computer science, and actually more broadly computational thinking. Computation within STEM subjects, within academia, within almost all walks of our life has become so important, and actually Technocamps' aim is to provide that opportunity and that awareness to our students. I always use this picture to try and describe some of the things we do. We do in-school workshops. You can see the two girls at the bottom who are doing one of our sciences fantastic workshops, which they were looking at the Bernoulli principle. My colleague Randall is demoing it with a straw and a ping pong ball. Much harder to do in front of a class than it looks. And then we would take these kind of principles and actually develop some computational models on a computer. We've got our teacher training cohorts who graduated from our accredited program, and some of the festivals and stores we've done. And probably the reason I want to talk to you today is about our robotics. In the bottom right is a team of students who were in year 10 at the time for Sir Thomas Picton down in Pembrokeshire. And I had an email a couple of weeks before our annual competition, and they said, if we can make a robot fly, can we bring it to your competition? And I was thinking, health and safety, I'm sure we can make this happen. And then I had a call the day after saying, we're going to be bringing hydrogen balloons, or helium balloons rather. And I started getting a bit nervous at this point, but sure enough, this team with a Lego NXT robot, two robots in fact, one to control it when in non-autonomous mode, and one actually in the device, actually managed to make a robot that could fly. And I was extremely impressed. It was almost like a drone, and it actually had an autonomous feature that would stop it from banging into things as well. You can see some of the propellers on there. Very impressed. So let me just talk a little bit about the journey and what we've been doing with robotics. Now, I didn't have this in originally, but I thought these are the kind of questions I and myself, my team and others often pose to young people when talking about computer science. You might ask someone, and I ask you to do this, you might have to close your eyes, but imagine when somebody says, what does a computer scientist look like? And, you imagine this person, and when you ask this to young people, hopefully you might have this stereotypical image in your mind. You're thinking, usually a man, probably with quite a lot of fuzzy hair going on, usually a lab coat. I'm not convinced why computer scientists need a lab coat. We're definitely dry scientists, but they've always got a lab coat on. And usually when you ask them what they do, they sit in a basement all day coding. So their perception of what computer science is all about is actually quite limited. And of course, is very different to actually what we really do. We often ask them to also draw a computer. And this has become more and more ironic, I think, as time has gone on, because you go into a primary school classroom, maybe a year, 2 years ago now, pre-COVID, and you ask them to draw a computer, and you see the students scratch their head. They're worried there's going to be a wrong answer. And every student draws a square box, a square monitor, a mouse, a keyboard, and then they go, sir, this is a computer. And the irony of this tale is they're actually drawing this computer on an iPad, and not one person in the whole class actually drew an iPad. So their perception of what a computer is very much this stereotypical idea of something that is on a desk. And that's what we want to change. How have we been going about changing these perceptions? And that's by working with robotics. We made a big investment back around 2010 into robotics, a wide range of different robotics, from Arduino-driven bots to Lego Mindstorms and other Lego robotics that have become available since. In a school setting, post-COVID, this is a whole topic that I could have done the whole presentation on. I think teaching robotics in a COVID world is very challenging, but we've done some really nice adaptations with virtual robotics. I really like the microcloud. Actually, it's a really interesting platform for something like that, maybe. So we would go into classrooms with a primary school class. We would spend a half day with them working with robotics, but with the primary goal of not just using the robotics to do something or to build something, but actually to solve some computational problems. Solving a maze, for example, is always a really nice one to get started with. So really getting students to think outside of the box and developing these core computer science-based skills and computational thinking skills. And with the secondary schools, we would go into full-day workshops where we would focus on both the hardware and the software of the devices. So this was kind of our starting with robotics. And then in Wales, a way of getting computer science into the classroom to get more schools involved was to use robotics. And since 2011, albeit for COVID over the last 18 months, we've ran a annual robotics competition. It's run every year, other than, as I said, the last 2 years. It would be a theme provided at the beginning of the year with an open-ended set of challenges of observations. We're not telling students to build a particular type of robot, but actually to come up with a problem within a particular field, let's say within health or within the environment, and develop something around it. You can see a really nice picture there of our director and a group of students from a Cardiff school who built a kind of a robot that would work around a city. And I believe this was a volcano, if I remember correctly, which they all set up. And they wanted to talk about disaster recovery, which was really nice. The really nice thing is actually it was an open-ended project. So they work on this project for around 8 weeks. Teachers would often tell us that the students would take over their classroom, and actually that was every lunchtime from that point onwards, it was the students in their classroom doing the club. And they would develop this project, they would get judged on the day, but there would also be a live unseen challenge as well. Now, I particularly liked this, and it really managed to get students to think on the spot and to come up with some really great ideas. I know I'm a bit short on time, so I'm going to speed up. Post-COVID with robotics, I'm still unsure. I don't know how the people who are in the audience are feeling about some of these things, but if you've come up with some great ways of engaging with robotics post-COVID, please let me know. I'd love to chat more about that. So what did this lead into? Oh, I added this picture in because I'm probably the most hated computer scientist in Wales, because this was my life challenge of 4 years ago, where I thought I built a lovely assault course that was really easy to do and all the students would manage to get lots of points. Apparently, it was the hardest thing they've ever had to do in 45 minutes, and I got booed off the stage. I was quite upset, but also very pleased at the innovative ideas that people came up with to try and solve it. So we've run this competition in Wales, and there's so many roboticicians out there. One thing that I really want to focus on today is the FIRST robotics competitions. Now, for those of you who aren't aware, FIRST in the US is an extraordinary charity that have brought together companies from all across the US to work and to commit to upskilling their young people into STEM. It started in the US, it is now a world brand, and they run a variety of different competitions. Now, I'm not going to have time to go into all of them, and these three are just the main sort of segments. They have FIRST Lego League, which I'm going to talk lots about. They have their FIRST Tech Challenge, and they have their FIRST Robotics competition as well. And these are linear challenges. They actually go, and it says on the screen, they go from age 4 all the way up to 18. And in the US, the philosophy with these competitions is actually many companies, Boeing is one really great example, aren't actually going to admission fairs anymore or careers fairs to try and recruit the best graduates. They're actually finding their students as part of FIRST robotics competitions, supporting and sponsoring the teams to compete at the national and international level, and then actually going on to offer them support as they go into university and actually to go and work for the company. It's a really great program, and I only wish we could do more with FIRST actually in Wales and across the UK. So we got very heavily involved in the FIRST Lego League, or FLL, back in 2013, and as part of, we ran our annual competition, and as part of that we also supported students to get involved with the FIRST Lego League challenges. Now, again, on the interest of time, I'm not going to go into too much into depth on the challenge, but it's a very holistic a program which has a robotics coding challenge, which is on a set mat. The only barrier, and it's actually one of the reasons that our competition in Wales got started, is there is a cost to this mat every year. And we know the demands that are on our teachers and on our schools. So we wanted to provide them a free way to actually not need that. We actually spent a lot of money on providing kit, but we just couldn't justify paying a fee every year to support the schools. And a lot of schools who got involved actually started raising sponsorship to do this, and it got into this ethos of how FIRST works. And as I said, in the US, they really have this great system of challenges and commitment to it. You meet the children, and you meet the young people and their parents and their coaches, and they are so invested in this program. And these are pupils from 6-year-old all the way up to 17, 18-year-olds. So for us, I just really wanted to talk about the journey that we had in Wales. So as part of this competition, and as working in partnership with other organisations in Wales, we ran regional events, supported the first Lego League tournaments, and actually back in 2017, I was lucky enough to take the first ever Welsh team to compete on the global stage. So this is in the World Festival of Robotics, that first run over in St. Louis in 2017. Great team. You actually see all the British teams down in the bottom right. And the World Festival is just an eye-opening experience into robotics across the world. And actually, and with the interest of time, I'm going to skip through this a little bit, but I've been lucky enough for the last 3 years, or the last 4 years rather, to actually go out to the World Festival in the US and support the competition. Each time taking a Welsh team with us. In 2019, Team Igni actually got awarded a Project Innovation Prize. Extremely pleased, worked extraordinarily hard on their project. And most recently, I've actually been invited back to the competition to actually work as one of the judges as part of the first Lego League. And it's an amazing experience, and you got to see a different side of the competition. Getting to see 125 teams from all across the world competing and showing off what they've done is just an amazing experience. And some of the innovation, some of the things that these students are programming on such simple robots. A team from Australia really stood out in my mind, where they actually completely from the ground up built a coordinate-based system for travel on their board. So the robot always knew where it would start with a starting position, of course. It would always know what its X and Y coordinates were based on the board. And you could tell it to move from one point to the other, implemented in an object-orientated way. I was just blown away. Some of the things they managed to accomplish was amazing. So I kind of whizzed through this a little bit. What for me is really an important takeaway is the doors that robotics can open within education, particularly for STEM, and particularly for increasing aspirations within STEM careers. For us, we're looking to support and introduce the full suite of robotics competitions provided by FIRST. As I said, it would be so amazing if we could replicate, or replicate maybe is the right word, the success that the FIRST have had in the US with these competitions. Then you don't just do a competition for 1 year. You buy into this team and this ethos, and you get involved year on year. This is, of course, only possible in collaboration. FIRST UK, who are a great charity that was set up around 3 years ago to help bring FIRST Tech Challenge to the UK, and before COVID, we had teams in Wales competing in that. The IET and ESW, who do have massive support for the first Lego League in Wales. And what's really exciting for us, it's a massive opportunity in Wales with a brand new curriculum. Myself and other key stakeholders within Technocamps and the universities and education alike have been involved in this development. And as part of this new curriculum, we have these areas of learning and experience, and our science and technology AOLE, as it's known, or area of learning and experience, has the inclusion of computer science as a core subject next to design and technology, physics, chemistry, and biology. So it's a really great opportunity to explore more of these links and actually inspire the next generation into these unique opportunities. That's probably all I wanted to say. Thank you so much for listening. And I'm hopefully going to hang around and we can have some questions.
Sure, thanks. That was really interesting. Thanks. And Stuart was saying, and just to let you all know, you can, of course, access these slides and links and any of the resources that presenters have had up on the screen on the website. We'll try and get them up there as soon as we can. And I know Emily still had a film to show, and so sorry we didn't get a chance to show that, Emily. And we'll make sure it's available on the website, so anyone will be able to have a look at that. So we're all here, so if anyone would like to pose some questions to the presenters, that would be brilliant. First off, just from what Stuart was saying there, I think there's a couple of quite interesting ideas that people might like to discuss further. I know Stuart then posed the question of what kind of post-COVID engagement with robotics might look like. And I'd be fascinated to hear your thoughts on that. I know, so both David and obviously Melissa and Emily kind of, you've been very involved in the past of actually taking kit into groups, into extracurricular activities and into schools to get kids really interacting with them, engaging them in that way. And I'd be fascinated to hear, we'd all be fascinated to hear your thoughts on where that might go in the kind of post-COVID age. I know Tony Prescott's here on with me now. We run a company that we're using telepresence, and that I've told you about in the past, Stuart. So for me, that would be one obvious kind of answer of something, one way to kind of help people actually engage with robotics is by kind of getting some really good and affordable kind of telepresence systems, basically, so that kids would still be able to access robots even if they weren't able to actually come into physical contact with them. But I'm sure there's a lot of other ideas, and I wonder, Melissa, Emily, David, if you might have some ideas on that.
Hi, we've actually, since the start of the first lockdown, Emily and our other teachers have worked really hard on developing robotics online programs. So all of the children who were training on our programs seamlessly continued to train. They did it mostly without robots at the beginning, and so for World Educational Robotics, which is really hands-on and practical, that posed a lot of barriers. So there was a really big focus on coding and problem solving and being innovative, but without kit. And then a lot of young people got basic bits of kit, and now just about all of our learners have got their own kit. And then schools who run World Educational Robotics programs like Sheffield High School did the same thing. They had some children who were in their school who were care workers' children, and they continued to do their robotics in school with a COVID policy. And then the children who were at home were doing something very, very similar to what the children were doing in the school and learning the same key learning objectives, but they just didn't do it with the kit from home. So they did it in a slightly different way. They did a lot of, I know that Lucy and Dawn made a lot of videos and were quite creative, but managed to do it. And then Emily, I'm sure, will be able to tell you how she's been able to use Miro code, which is perfect for remote learning. With Miro, doesn't matter if the children haven't got the robot.
I think Emily said she's having some trouble with her audio. If I just jump in there, yeah, it's a really interesting question for me, because actually one of the big uses of robotics for us, and it really is for us developing those fundamental skills within computer science and computation. It's one of our driving factors for using it, and we find that we use robotics as that sort of first engagement and also long-term engagement to keep and to attract students to actually do something and to find a different way of approaching these kind of challenges. And I found it quite difficult that actually, if you almost try and shoehorn robotics in this way when it's not in a physical environment, that I'm wondering if there's better ways to engage them currently, if that makes sense. Although it sounds like you've had some great success with that, Melissa.
It did come with a lot of challenges, and like you say, Stuart, it's really one of the fundamental things about robotics is the hands-on practical side with the robots and the teamwork and physically being together as a team with your hands together on the robots and one person programming and one person engineering. That's just one of the really great things about robotics, and you can't 100% simulate that in a virtual or remote environment.
Can I just say something about how we've been using Miro at the university to sort of in a COVID safe way? So we ran a level 1 undergraduate course with I think 300 students last semester, and there was a mixture of off-site working using the Miro cloud environment, which is a full physics simulator. So you get realistic simulation, fairly realistic simulation of what the robot does. But we also ran some COVID-secure lab classes in which the students were able to run their programs on the robots. And you can do that because the code can be downloaded via Wi-Fi onto the robot. So you don't actually have to touch the robot to put your code onto it. And we would have demonstrators who would look after a couple of robots, and they would, put them in the right place in the arena or whatever, so that people could run their code and sort of make sure that people were taking it in turns to use the robots. So it is possible to do this in a COVID-safe way. We've also, with Miro, looked at cleaning it, and it is a robot that you can clean quite easily if people have had contact with it. And I do think one of the real benefits of robotics is the physical contact that you can get with actually, having a piece of kit that moves around and you can touch it and it does stuff. Because when we've talked to children about computing at events like Cheltenham Science Festival, and this chimes a bit, with what I think Stephen was saying, is they have this idea of what computing is, which is really quite rigid. And when you tell them this robot's controlled by a computer program, it can be a real eye-opener for them, and they can get excited about robotics and about computing in a way that they weren't before.
Thanks, Tony. That's a really good point, and I mean, leads quite nicely as well onto what we had from Stewart in the last week talk there. That would be great to hear people's ideas on as well. Is that actually maybe it's kind of computational thinking is what we really need to kind of get out there and help the kids understand more.
We've really found that the Miro code has been the best way for us to be able to help children to continue with that computational thinking, because the simulator is just so great on it. And they're able to do their Blockly, they're able to do their Python, they're able to see a simulator. And we found that that's been really helpful over these times where children haven't been able to access kit.
Yeah, I think some of the feedback we've had from schools about the benefit of simulation is that you get very quick feedback as to whether your program works, whereas if you're having to sort of download it to a robot, run it on the robot, and then it doesn't work, that whole thing takes several minutes, and it can be quite discouraging if it then doesn't work. So with the simulator, you get very quick feedback to see if it worked or not, and then if it has worked on the simulator, you can try it on the robot, and it should do something, maybe not what you expected, but something interesting.
I think that's a really interesting point, if I can jump in there. It's funny that actually that sort of, we talk often about the PRIM method that some of you might have heard around teaching coding, particularly in primary schools. Something that Sue Sentence developed in the team in Kings, who's now in Raspberry Pi. It's so interesting that actually, as you said, that development cycle for testing code is actually quite tedious on a robot. But somehow, for me, and especially the experience we've had, that actually the physical robots breaks down all of the barriers for engagements. And teams, if you take like laptops into a classroom, or you take robots into a classroom, or you do one of each, we find that, particularly the girls will shy away from actually getting involved, will be less eager to engage. Whereas actually, when you take the robots in, it kind of is so different and something so new that actually they turn around and go, oh, I really want to be involved in this. So we're using it as that kind of catalyst for engagement, and then exploring how we can utilize the kind of the techniques and the technical elements of robotics to actually develop their course understanding and skills.
Brilliant. Thanks, Stuart. David, you're back on your microphone. What are your thoughts on all this?
Yeah, we've had some really good experiences with the simulator on the microbit, I mean, I use simulation all the time in my day job, and it's quite good to be able to say to children that you can try this stuff out first in a safe environment, and then you download it to the physical computer. And when you've got a robot, it's quite hard to debug because there's lots of things going on, and you're trying to walk around with a computer attached to it to see what's happening. So there's been quite a lot of work done in the Make Code editor, which is based heavily on Blockly, same as what the Mirror Code Cloud uses, to have on-screen simulations of the different sensors and things. So you can plug in, you can have a virtual servo on the screen, you have virtual motors and things, and then you can actually simulate the code on the screen. And then once you've got that right, you can then download it to Microbit. There's another platform that I bumped into. I saw it first demonstrated a bit a couple of years ago from an organisation called Insight Resources, and they do a thing called Insight Mr. Bit, and it's really good because what you can do is you can write the code on a tablet, and then you can connect it. You connect it wirelessly to the microbit, and then you can interact with the code on the tablet, and it's actually affecting the real microbit. So there's like this tethered mode, and then what you can do is you can actually break the tether and then actually physically download the code onto the microbit. So that's quite a good system to look at, where you have this halfway house where you've got simulation, which is just on the computer. You've got a tethered mode where you're doing it on the computer, but it's also happening on the remote device. And then you've got a completely standalone mode where it's actually running on the device. So that's quite an interesting model, I think. I'd like to see more of that around.
And one thing that we found as well is that usually when the children are all together and they've got robots in front of them and they're all together, they really are just focused on being able to solve the challenges in the best and easiest way possible. So they always go to Blockly to do block coding, even when they've had some training in how to use like C programming or Python. When they're all together and they've got the robots there, they're just distracted on wanting to get things done. So it's easy to just revert to block coding. And we've found that when we've been online, children have been able to focus more, and we've been able to get them to do some more advanced robotics. Like we've been able to get them to do calibration curves on their speed, distance, and timings for their robots, and to do what else have they done? They focus more on using the C programming and the Python, because they're sat there by themselves. They don't necessarily have a kit. So their challenge is to develop their higher level coding skills, and they've been able to develop their skills a lot more, so that then when they do go back to the robotics, they're at a higher level than what they probably would have been had they not had that time at home where they're having to do remote learning and focus on the coding side of things and developing those computational skills more.
Yeah, I think also there's it's quite interesting to hear Stewart and others say about children having different preconceived ideas of what a computer is and what a computer isn't. And on a number of occasions, I've started off my sessions with a little starter activity where I just say, how many computers have you got in your house? And they all start sort of saying, oh, I've got this one and that one. And they say, oh, okay, so what is a computer? And then they start saying, well, is a mobile phone a computer? Oh, yes, it is. And then, oh, I've got 6, 7, I've got 8. And say, well, is a tablet a computer? And then they say, well, actually, is a central heating controller a computer? Is a TV a computer, especially like a smart TV? And they start to run out of fingers, and they'll say, oh, I've got 68 computers in my house. And so it's probably only a small percentage of how many you've got. And that's a great little activity to do. And it just gets them thinking about what is a computer and what isn't a computer. And then you can say, well, if you take the keyboard away or the screen away, is it still a computer? And that gets them thinking. So I think there's more work to do across all avenues, really, in terms of trying to get especially younger children to understand what a computer is and what a computer isn't. We had, just on that note, we had some interesting feedback in some of the early lessons we did with Microbit, because you had the on-screen simulator and you had the Microbit. And what a lot of very, very young primary children were doing was that they were transferring the code from the web editor onto the Microbit device. And then they thought that once they'd done it once, that the two were linked together. And they couldn't understand why they were changing the code and it wasn't changed on the Microbit. And one of the things that we learned quite quickly was that it's really important, especially in the first couple of programs you write, that you unplug the USB cable and you power the Microbit off the battery pack so they understand that the two are not tethered together. And once you do that, even just for the first couple of usages, they really do understand the fact that no, what you're doing is you're transferring the code from the big computer to the little computer. So there are things that you can do very early on as interventions and starter activities that make that a bit clearer for them.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, it's so great to sit here, and I almost sounded maybe a bit negative about robotics in COVID. I think it's because of the way we've ran things, and kind of we've switched our focus to very different kind of hands-on activity, particularly off-screen activities, because we know how sort of the screen tiredness of students and our teachers, in fact. I have to say, unfortunately, I'm supporting our students in something called the Google Hash that they're about to release the coding problem for in 4 minutes' time. So if I don't get over to the call, my students will be quite upset. But I just want to say a great thank you to everybody, and it's great to hear all the other great work that's going on with robotics. Thank you for having me.
Stuart, thank you. That was great. Thank you very much. Really interesting.
Yeah, thank you, Stuart. I think if other people have questions and you want to or want to make a comment, we can add you as a presenter. You can't. I think you to. Sorry, go on, Richard.
Lucy's about to ask a question, I think. So Lucy's a primary school teacher.
Sure, go for it, Lucy.
Hi, yeah, I work with Melissa really closely. Hi, Melissa. And I was just gonna share with Stuart, unfortunately he's left, just to say, yeah, the Miro simulation is great, but just not to be anxious or nervous about teaching with the COVID, because we follow the CLEAPS risk assessment. So in school, they recommend leaving at 72 hours. You assign robots to children, they're assigned in their bubbles. I'm going to be teaching it on March the 10th. Do you know what I mean? So I'm not worried, it's still going to be happening. And then for children that are still at home, I'm really aware that they don't necessarily have the kit, they don't have anything like that. So we set up using a very simple website that everybody can access, or YouTube videos. Again, I know children, depending on any device, they can still access it on a mobile phone, or really simply the problems, and then they can write their solutions just on pen and paper. They don't need any specific software. And I think just keep it really simple of what you want them to get out of it, and they can use what equipment they've got available. So you can still set the problems that you would maybe do doing with the robots, and you can play them the video of the task model or something like that. But they can use what they've got available to them. So they can use Connect or Lego or anything like that, or just draw it on pen and paper, but they're still getting engaged with it. And I think that's really important, that they don't have those boundaries to stop them or hold them back. So I wanted to say to Stephen, just, do you know what I mean? There's so many ways that you can work around it. So,
and nobody can stop Lucy. Lucy, you really cannot stop Lucy. Lockdown does not stop Lucy, because back in May, Lucy ran a robotics competition for not only her own school, but for was it 3 schools altogether, Lucy?
Yeah, there was 3 schools.
And most of those children were working from home, weren't they?
Yeah.
And
yeah, they didn't have access to the robots that they'd normally been and had been using in school, but they still they used whatever they had available to them, and they could use. We took screenshots of the program, so even if they couldn't download or install the program, they could write it on a bit of paper and could use the screenshots that we'd done to still submit their code for the robot. And then what we could do is we then could program the robot based on their programs that they wrote and submit it to us and test them and see whether it worked and things.
Can I ask a question, Lucy? What's your experience of children that are perhaps less confident, or a bit more introverted, and don't sort of come forward to get involved in this so much? How do you motivate them, and what are the barriers, and how do you overcome them?
I think we've had a whole mixture of different children with from SEN needs to children which have lots of experience in it. I think what's been really important is just taking them step by step and just making it really simple and trying to make it fun. I mean, one of the very early lessons that we do with it is a dance competition. So, just trying to make it real, put it into the real life, and just keep it, just say you're on this journey, and you just say that these are the skills, and we have very clear a booklet, and they can tick off and they say, oh yeah, we've done that. And each lesson we refer back and we remind them, right, you've done this skill, okay, we're going to use that now, and constantly building up and reassuring them, and trying to relate it to real life as much as possible, so they can see why they're doing it as well. And yeah, I mean, I teach at a girls' school, so it's interesting to hear the comments about girls and things like that. So I just think, yeah, we just take it really steady and really slow and keep reminding them of what they've done and rebuilding it, which you would do in any subject. You know, you share with them their learning journey and take them on it with them.
But Lucy, you've now gone to do outreach in other surrounding schools that aren't all girls' schools. You've gone to do outreach and to train the teachers in other schools to do the things that you're doing in your curriculum. And have you noticed any difference with girls by themselves and girls in a mixed school environment, and how they engage and their confidence levels?
Yeah, I think when they were mixed, again, it depends on the children and the personalities, doesn't it? I mean, every school and children are different, but we definitely had some girls that, you know, immediately like, oh gosh, you know, how do I do this? But by the end of it, I mean, it's such an amazing thing. And like Melissa was saying, you know, no stopping me. It's because I've just got really passionate about it, because I can really see the impact that it has on the pupils and the children. And I think even the girls that necessarily weren't as keen to begin with, they work in small groups. I think that's really key. So they're not, you know, they don't necessarily have to stand up and explain it and be with the confident boys. They can work in small groups. They can work in the comfort zone. And even we always just praise the little successes, even if you downloaded your program, great. You know, that's a skill in itself. You know, and just keep working on debugging and the little successes really, and building it up all the time.
But Lucy, you're not teaching robotics as a separate subject, are you? You're using it to teach your usual curriculum, aren't you? Which subjects are you using your robotics in?
So I work very closely with my colleague Dawn, who's head of computing, and I'm actually head of science. So I'm always trying to bring it in and use it in science. So we've used it with the sensors, with light and teaching light and the grayscale sensors. That's why I'm interested in utilising the microbits, because we have a series of the older version of microbits actually, and I've used them in, again, my science lessons with sound, and using them in that. So I've used microbits with that, and it's all very much about trying to link it in with a different curriculum. We want to do year one, do Katie Morag, and I'm going to get them to make windmills and things, and using it with them. There's so many different ways. I mean, it's endless that you can use it with the national curriculum. Do you know what I mean? And STEM and everything. I think there's loads of possibilities.
So Lucy, there's a couple of projects that I've done in my science club that you might be interested in. They're not robotics based, they're very science based. So one is we measured the speed of sound using 2 microbits, which was a project that the science teacher said whenever he tries to do it, it's always raining and they can't do it out in the field. So we did it inside a classroom and it was really accurate. And the second one we did, we used 2 microbits and we used the light sensor and made light gates. And we did the trolley experiment where you load the trolley up with weights and you measure the acceleration of the trolley. So we did that with microbits as well. So we've got some science experiments we built with them that work really well, and they work with the version 1 microbits as well. So the light sensing, and then what we did with the measuring the speed of sound was we just bought these little plug-in sensor boards, have a microphone on, and then you have 2 microbits with 2 microphones, and you clap a block and it times how long it takes for the message to get across. We do a little experiment with them where they use the onboard radio, the microbit, and we talk about, well, how does the Internet of Things work and how do things get connectivity to the Internet, as well as actually doing real science experiments. That's quite a fun one.
That's brilliant. Where can I find those resources?
Probably the best thing to do is email me, and I've got them in draft form, so we're writing them up at the moment. We were a bit delayed because of COVID, so we did all the experiments with the children, and then we were writing up basically their experiments to make it more widely available. So we got a bit delayed with that because we got sort of lost access. Schools haven't allowed STEM ambassadors to come in the last few months. But if you email me, you've got my email address in the presentation. I'll send you where we've got to with it, and perhaps you can try them out and feedback.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. I look forward to testing them.
Lucy, we'll have loads of resources available. Sorry, Tim, we'll have loads of resources available on the website and everything from here. So if you need any help getting in touch with David or accessing any of those resources, just let us know through the SERAS website, and we'll give you the details.
Yeah, Lucy, I know we've got another meeting scheduled, so we can discuss this there. But I'm very interested in how we can use Miro to teach science and robots generally to teach science and not just computing. My own background, besides robotics, is in psychology, and I used to teach lab classes to psychology students using robots and robot simulators, and I would teach them about animal learning and reflexes and things like this, things that you know, back in the day, children would learn using studies of actual animals, but clearly don't do that anymore, even at university. So there's real opportunity, I think, to use a biomimetic robot like Miro to teach principles in biology and psychology, and to sort of bring those things alive, because you actually have real behavior in front of you, and you can study how that arises from some mechanism. So something like animal learning conditioning can be really brought alive by that.
Yeah, I was really interested, Tony, to find out more about, because I know from the videos I watched that Miro is touch sensitive, isn't he? You can actually pet him, and interested to see sort of what sorts of activities you build around that, because one of the things we find with robotics normally is that, you know, they're very sort of very control heavy, and it's very logical and technical. And one of the things, which is why I knitted it into my presentation a bit, was I've done quite a lot of work with more on the gaming side, this idea of giving personality to the device. I'm quite interested in the fact that you've now got sensing on, you know, on a robot that you can interact with that personality, and, you know, the device has an attitude and a way of responding to that. So I'm quite interested to sort of, you know, hear your views on that.
I mean, what we're trying to do is to kind of get children to sort of see the robot both as a sort of learning platform, but also as a kind of classroom pet, so they can they get to care about the robot because of its sort of animal-like behavior. But then they see that behavior derives from the program that it runs, and they could actually change that program. So I think it can teach a lot of different concepts, you know, sort of, and that's why I think it's so great for psychology, because you make the link between behavior and something that's happening inside a program, and you can say, well, in a way, what your brain is doing is running a program that's generating your behavior. So these are difficult concepts to get across without having a sort of a physical example of that happening. And I think the tactile interaction is really important, I think, for the sort of the sort of more pastoral side of what we want to use Miro for. And it really has sort of, we've seen some real impacts on sort of students that are very upset and agitated can just become really calm as a result of interacting with Miro. And you stroke the shell and it sort of changes its behavior and changes its color, and that can have a calming effect. So, you know, we're trying to do two things with it at the same time, which sometimes is difficult, but I think they can be complementary.
Yeah. I noticed also in the videos I was watching, you use sound quite a lot. So we did some work. So with the new version 2 microbit that has sound on it, we did some work with a sound designer that designed sound, what we call sound emojis. You know, the idea that you can have an icon that is smiling or is sad is now communicated via sound. And we find that children interact, you know, with the sound because it's a way of the device communicating its state and its emotion. I was quite interested to see that Miro makes sounds as well, and actually those sounds that they're very well designed. We you know, had some good early feedback on the, you know, the sound design that's been done on the microbit.
Yeah, I mean the Miro sounds are actually there's an interesting story there, because they're generated by a sound synthesizer, so they're not pre-recorded. There's a sound synthesizer that makes these noises, and it's based on reverse engineering of the mammalian throat. So actually, it makes sounds using a computer model of an animal throat of an animal of the same size So there's a parameter that you can tweak. If you could make an animal with a bigger throat and it would sound like an elephant. You could make it smaller, it sound like a mouse. But we deliberately made it sound like an animal of that size. So it's and then we try and color the sounds with emotion, which is a bit harder. So there's lots of things to play with that, I think.
So,
We've
so
had
Tony,
Oh,
sorry, go on. I was going to say, Tony, so you would have looked at a lot of the effective computing, and there's that famous work, you know, the media equation, about how we anthropomorphize, and that helps our memories, and that storytelling is very important to how we connect and make sense of the world. And that seems to be sort of, is that sort of part, I mean, of what Miro's design has been about as well, in that sort of thought, that sort of social setting of it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm very interested in that whole question, you know, sort of, and what you want to do is for children to be able to have that sort of feeling of a relationship with the robot, but also to understand that it's a robot, you know, and to understand what robots are. And we're trying to do that without, you know, sort of having to be too explicit about what that means, because actually it turns out you can actually have this bond with the robot, but at the same time know that it's programmed, which is really interesting.
Well,
and has wider impact for robotics. Yeah.
As I say, it's a bit like, you know, sort of how we anthropomorphize quite a lot of things in our lives. We associate things with them, but we know, for example, the toaster is a toaster, even though we might have anthropomorphized it in some way, or the TV or something. So we are able to have those relationships, and they do kind of bring a sort of a sense of some connectivity as well. But the robots, of course, can do a lot more, and sort of in that interaction.
Yeah, I think you can have at the same time the attitude towards it that it's sort of you know, it's a thinking goal-directed thing, like an animal, but also understand that it's a design device, and people are able to have both of these perspectives at the same time on it, which is really interesting. Yeah, I've studied this actually. It's something that I've been writing about.
There was some interesting experience many years ago. I worked for a summer play scheme, and it was back in the I think late 90s, and it was when all the Neopets and the Tamagotchis were around. And I remember when the kids used to go and do an activity, I used to wear what effectively was like a necklace of about 26 different Tamagotchis, and I had to feed them and change them and everything. And if one of the Tamagotchis died, the kids were completely distraught. I mean, they were really in tears if one of these things died. And it was interesting because one of the projects that the BBC did, so in the starting guide that was written by Hodder Education, it's a great little project. It was a Neopet for the microbit, and it actually had personality. And you had to, you know, wake it and feed it and pet it and everything. But the thing it was missing was it didn't have any sounds on it. And I'd noticed that children didn't really interact very well with the microbit one because it didn't have sound on it. So one of the things I want to look back at is what we did with that project, the Neopet project and the microbit. Now the version 2 has got sound on it. It's add some sounds to it and see the children engage a bit more, because I think if there's multiple senses, if you actually see the thing with different icons and you also hear it, and those sounds are quite cute and quite appealing, I think, you know, it might relate to what you're seeing with Miro, is the combination of senses actually make the thing more lifelike.
Yeah, I think sound also, you can't really escape from it. You can look away, but you can't sort of close your ears. So it kind of demands attention in a way that other forms of display don't.
Tony, I think you've heard us, Emily and I, speak before about how much the children have enjoyed using the sensor sounds on the real Miro, but also on the simulator. And they love to set it, because there's all of the different pitches, and they love to set it at the highest frequency possible. And just put it on for like infinity. They always code it for infinity. And when you've got like 15 children in a room and they do that, it's very interesting.
Is anybody waiting with an urgent question? I know we've run out of time. I don't know. I'm just wondering if anybody else has or something to say.
I don't think we have. Would anyone who's still here Gabrielle, Laura, Hit, Ollie, Roseanne, Serkan, Simon. I don't know if you'd like to ask our presenters anything. I know Ollie would like to get a quick message out about a competition he's got running at the moment. No? Ollie, do you want me to let you tell everyone about that a second? You're a presenter now. You've been promoted, so please do.
Wonderful, thanks. I just thought I'd take this really quick opportunity, as well as working at the Open University and all sorts of things. I run a small business, and I'm still very much in touch with when I was a computing teacher in secondary schools. And I set up a competition a couple of months ago, and there's £200 worth of cash prizes available for students. So there's £100 for Key Stage 3 and below, and £100 for Key Stage 4 and 5. And all students have to do is write a program within some very, very vague and flexible parameters, submit it, and the winner gets £100 each, for each age range. So I just want to try and share this with as many people as possible, because it's basically free money for young people to do some programming. So I've put the link in the chat.
Have you? Oh, that's the link on there. Great.
Yeah, there's a link in the chat. It's send me a link, and the winner gets the money. It really is as simple as that. There's no sneaky catches or anything. I want to try and publish as many as possible in a book that's coming up, but it's just an opportunity to get people programming. And frankly, despite the fact it's been massively shared across Facebook, I've only had so far about 10 or 12 applications, and some of them a bit rubbish, and I don't want to. I'd love to find something decent to give the money to, because yeah. So there we go. That's me done. Thank you.
Brilliant.
We'll share that in our
community.
Ollie, we'll share it in the Discovery STEM community.
Thanks, that's been wonderful.
Thanks.
I think Richard, we've got another one of these events coming up, and just anybody who's still here, we'd like to hear about ideas or suggestions you have for the next event. So it'll be another one of these mini conferences. So I mean, you can make suggestions now or email them to us at info@seras.org. The address is on the screen now. We'd very much like to hear from people what they would like to do in the next mini conference. Also, the plans for the summer conference are a bit up in the air. We just generally like to hear people's ideas about future activities and what we're going to do. Definitely, we will do something in the summer, and probably also in the autumn half term. And also, if people want to get involved with SERAS, then email us there as well and tell us about your organisation and how you'd like to get involved. We involve partners of all shapes and sizes, not just universities at all, not for profits, for profits, anything at all really. Well, there's an interest in this topic, you can get involved.
Melissa, that's a great idea, getting school teachers presenting. We're certainly thinking, as in-person conferences sadly looking kind of less likely by the minute, we were kind of thinking of, so I'm just putting my video on, so we were thinking of doing a series of workshops, and I've spoken with David about this, that if that we could do some microbit workshops, and I think Miro would be a good one as well.
Yeah.
And kind of any ideas like that, Melissa? I don't know if you'd be interested in holding a workshop like that.
Well, we work with a lot of school teachers who do robotics and who are incorporating robotics into their schools, mostly primary, but some secondary as well. So we could put that message out there. I know Lucy and Dawn would be the first ones to want to jump in there. Lucy, who spoke earlier. But there's a wonderful robotics teacher at UTC, Olympic Legacy Park, who we work with. He's a specialist robotics teacher. I'm sure there's quite a lot of school teachers who are doing robotics, and it'd be wonderful to celebrate what is already happening in schools and what teachers are already doing. Most of them are doing it off their own back. They've not been told by the school to do it. They've just decided themselves in their own spare time to learn robotics, the primary school teachers, and then to find ways to put it into the curriculum. So they're quite innovative in the way that they're using robotics and the way that they're developing sessions. So that could be quite interesting.
That's a great idea.
Melissa, I think we might need someone like you to help bring this together because, you know, our contacts with schools are relatively indirect.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
maybe you could be a co-chair for the next one. Or...
Yeah, sure.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Sorry, can I just butt in and just say I shared the wrong link. I was multitasking, and that's a link I've shared. I've copied something completely different. While very interesting and useful, nothing to do with winning money for children. So I've now put the correct link in the chat. You may read both if you wish to.
Perfect, thanks, Ollie. Well, I think, has anyone else got any questions, or can we help with anything at all?
I think we're good.
Sorry, Tony?
I think we're good. I think we just want to say thanks to the speakers.
I think, Tony, you should
staying on throughout the meeting. And thanks to the chair, Richard. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you all next time and at future events. And anything else to say, Richard?
No, that's it. Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming.
I was just going to, sorry, Richard. I was just going to say maybe Tony maybe Tony, you could do a presentation on your paper because it looks fantastic.
Well, yeah, I mean, I could certainly give a presentation about the robots and education stuff that we've done. Actually, we've done it's not in that paper, but in other papers, we've looked at human robot interaction in children in education settings for another a European project.
Right.
And particularly there, we looked at how children see robots and how that's different from how adults see robots. So I could give a talk sometime to this group, definitely.
Perfect. We really look forward to that. That'd be great.
I like volunteering other people, Richard, if I can. And they're always much better than me, so it's a win-win.
Indeed. Well, so thank you so much, David and Melissa. Thanks so much for coming today. Yeah, Melissa, we really look forward to kind of future working with you in the future, and you know, hopefully on one of these mini conferences. That'd be absolutely brilliant. And same to you, David. Thanks so much for coming. That was a fascinating thing.
Yeah, thanks so much for inviting me. Really good to contribute.
That's brilliant. And Chukka Duck has gone down into SERAS. I'm sure we'll be doing more of that. So, thanks so much. And we'll see everyone soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.